Hi BookTube, it's time for a book tag. So spring is officially here. I mean, it started back in March on the 20th, I think was the first of spring, but it hasn't felt like spring. I mean, there were a few days where it felt like spring. And even before spring started, there were a couple days where it felt a little bit warmer. Felt more a little bit like spring meets summer kind of weather. But it definitely April showers have started, which it's funny. They start early because earlier in March, towards the end of March, there were a couple days where we had rain, and now it's definitely raining today. Very much thunderstorms. But I was able to squeeze in a walk because I skipped yesterday because I just didn't feel like it, and I got up late. And I was gonna go in the afternoon, but then that's when I decided to reorganize my library, and I was feeling guilty afterwards. So I was able to get there, and because it's not just about wanting, it's also, it makes me feel good to go for a walk, to get that fresh air, even if I spend all day inside. It feels like I'm doing something good for my body and good for myself. So I like doing those walks, and then I use that to also think about things, and I listen to my iPod as well when I do that. I don't like listening to audiobooks because I'm moving and stuff like that. So I like the idea. I rather listen to music because it gets me pumped up and excited, and so yeah, I like doing those walks, and I prefer doing them in the sun. But it's one of these things where I felt like I should get that walk in. I should get that walk in today. So I was like, if it's not raining, let me go ahead. The other thing I was worried about is that the rain would mess up my electronic device. And I've already been through enough electronic devices as it is, and it costs money. It's just a lot harder for me to walk and run when I don't have music to listen to, because it kind of makes it a chore more than something I enjoy doing. But anyway, but other than that, it's been overcast all day, and finally the rain started this afternoon, which is what it said it would. It said it would start in the afternoon, so here it is. Okay, let's do the tag. This is the Spring Has Sprung book tag, and to get the questions, I watched Heather from Bookables' video. One of this one I watched her recent one. The other tag, I had watched her video as well, but I didn't get, it was an old one. And unfortunately, the only problem is in that case, she didn't have the questions in there, so I couldn't copy and paste the questions. I had to pause every time she put a question, or every time she stated the question, so I could type it up, so I can have the question, so I knew what it was. But anyway. So this is the Spring Has Sprung book tag, and here is the first one. The first statement is flowers. All the flowers are blooming again. Pick a book that's fresh. That's a fresh take on a retelling. And this is one that I don't have. It was one that I got from the library. And that was, actually, no, I think I did buy that one, but I decided I'm probably not going to read it again. So it might have been a library. I'm not sure if I got it from the library or if I bought it and just decided I was going to read it again and gave it away. But that was March by Geraldine Brooks. And this was and I didn't want to use the other Bennett sister, but I think that's also a fresh take on a classic. It is the whole story, the Pride and Prejudice from the perspective of Mary Bennett, but it doesn't stick with that story because Mary Bennett's story does not end there. But I didn't want to talk about that one because I've already talked about that one, so I'm going to talk about March, which it also tells the story from a different perspective. In this one we have the Colonel March, the father in the family. He was away during the Civil War as a chaplain, and he also he was offered the soldiers a chance to pray to God and ask for forgiveness and all that and confess their sins to him. So we got his side of the story. So we're not with the family, the March family, but we are with, and it's much more adult book, much more mature stuff, and there's a lot more action, of course, because he's on the battlefield, and there's a lot more things to think about, and it's less, there's still that moral of believing in God and doing the right thing and all that. And it's still a very moralistic story, but it's a more mature tone and less sentimental feeling. And we also get to know Marmee and him and who they were before and how they met and fell in love and stuff and got married. And we see that how they ended up being poor. And we explore that more and how, like, he had given money to help a friend, and then the friend kind of screwed them over and betrayed them and didn't return the money back. So they ended up being poor, and that's why the family back at home are in the state that they're in, where they don't have a lot of money and they can't have presents for the holidays for themselves. And so we get that whole origin of how that happened. And we see that the parents are very flawed human beings, and they try their best to be a good example for their children. So it's a very different, I like stories that explore a different perspective on a classic, like get someone else's point of view. Or I do also like the idea of those ones where you get to revisit that story, but not just from a different point of view, but from like a what happened after situation. I also like that idea as well. So yeah, I think that was refreshing because we don't have a lot of those. I mean, even though that's generally the idea of retellings. But there's a lot more retellings where it's like a modern retelling, you know? And this one was more of a, like a different take on the story. So that's... Then we have question number 2. Cadbury Mini Eggs. Obviously the superior springtime treat. Which I've never had a Cadbury egg before. I mean, I might have when I was a kid. But I don't remember. So I'm going to say you're supposed to pick a sweet treat. Pick a... Oh crap. I answered that question wrong. I misread it, and of course it should have been like a... Okay, so I have to think about that one for a minute then. Okay, so that is actually, you're supposed to pick a book that's a sweet treat. Let's see, what's a book that's a sweet treat? All of Jane Austen's books, I think, are sweet treats. Let's see, sorry, I just missed this. Totally missed that question. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Noel feels like a sweet treat. Let's see. Little, although I can't really fairly say Little Women because I haven't read the whole book. Sorry, like I said, I misread this question. I thought you were actually supposed to pick a literal sweet treat. I wouldn't, okay, you know what, I normally don't do this, but because I'm running out, because I'm going to use this book for another question. Actually, yeah, I'm going to, for a second I had to double check it wasn't the next question, but I'm using this, so I normally don't do this. I don't like using the same book, but because I made a mistake and I don't want to waste your guys' time by looking at my shelves and having you stare at nothing but, my wall or my chair, I'm just going to say The Hobbit. I think The Hobbit is sweet. It's the only book, Tolkien book that I actually read, and all the way through, because it's originally was meant for kids. And this is an adventure story. It's Bilbo's adventure, how he first came across the ring. It's fun and full of music and singing and silly dwarves. And now I know that the movie adaptation is very different from the book. A lot of people did not like the movie adaptation, and they think, it was for the purpose of money that they made it into a trilogy. I personally liked it. I'm the minority here, I know. I know my friend Terry loved it too. Loved the movie adaptation, and she, like me, also I think only read this book and then The Fellowship of the Ring. So she's one step ahead of me in that. but I don't know if she remembers because she read it so long ago. But, and I think this was just so funny and fun, and I think it's a delectable, fun story. It's a great story to read with your kids to get them into fantasy. I want to eventually read this to my nephews and my niece. I want to get them a copy of the book as well when they get a little bit older, and read it to them, because this was originally supposed to be for kids. This was written for kids, so, which my family was surprised, and I think that's because they've only seen the adaptation, they never read the book. So I'm gonna, I want to read them to my nephews and my niece one day, but first I want to reread it. So, yeah, I normally don't do that. Is going to be an answer for another question later, and I normally don't do that, but like I said, I don't want to keep you guys waiting and having only the wall and my chair to stare at. So, and I remember there was another booktuber who said, he doesn't it's not good to have a video where you're unprepared. Okay, so, question number 3, allergies. Seasonal allergies often make your eyes water. Pick a book that made you cry. Well, like Heather, I don't cry in books that often. I rarely cry. I'm more prone to cry in a TV show or movie. And the only time I'm not going to cry in a TV show or movie is if I'm not paying attention. And lately I've had the habit of doing that, where I'm, like, on my computer watching YouTube while I have something on TV. I try to stick to ones I've watched a million times, but there's always that new movie coming out that I'm like, oh, I need to watch that. So, it's harder now to get me to watch something, just sit down and watch something without being on my computer. So, I mean, if we have company, then yeah, I'll do that. Like, I watched Stranger Things with Terry, for the first time, and and sat on the couch and everything. But, although I might have not stayed on the couch, I might have still went and sat on my chair. But anyway, plus the other reason why I can't do that anyway. I can't have my computer going on with someone else in the room unless I'm far enough away. But last year, I did actually cry in a book. It's a nonfiction, actually. And it is Jane Austen, Her Life and Letters, both by William Austen Lee and Richard Arthur Austen Lee. They're the ones that put it together. But it's also, technically, I would like to give credit to Jane Austen herself, because it's her letters. Not all of them. So she actually wrote the letters. They just they just put the letters together. I don't know what they are in relation to her. I mean, I guess her nephews or great nephews, because obviously they're not her kids because she never got married. But yeah, okay, so I don't think this is a spoiler. Everyone knows that Jane Austen eventually died at a very young age, and at least considered young by today's standards. And she was very close with her niece. She had a very good relation with one of her nieces who wanted to be a writer. I think both of them wanted to be writers. And one seriously pursued it for a little while, wrote an actual book, and they were very close. And then, so Cassandra had to write her niece a letter telling her how Jane died. And oh my god, that Cassandra's letter just teared me up. Like I said, I don't cry during books, but I think because it was a letter, it was like, and I was reading it when there was no distractions. I was out on their front porch, so it was very quiet. The only noise were the birds chirping. But oh my god, that just teared me up, reading that letter and telling her that, I'm sorry that Jane has passed, and how much she knows that she meant to her niece, and it's just, it was the only time I cried. It was just so hard to read, knowing, but yeah, that is the only time I've ever cried in a book. Now, I will cry in a movie adaptation, possibly, but, okay, so question number 4, I wasn't sure if I would have an answer for this one. Or at least I could have an answer, but then I would have to go downstairs to our den because all my donated books have been moved to the den until we can take them to either the roast office. Someone can drive me up to the roast office because I have a lot, and I'm not going to walk the 50 minutes carrying that bag that could easily rip. And we did schedule an appointment for Black Castle on next Tuesday, so I'll go then. But that we put them down there to get them out of the way because they've been sitting at a corner of my room for a long time. I still have stuff in there, but these are books that are kind of in book limbo. The good news is my mom didn't say anything. She was like, okay. But the question is, spring cleaning, out with the old and in with the new. Pick a book to unhaul. And I feel bad for saying this because this is a very new book, but I did decide to, and I haven't had it that long. I got it like sometime last year, I think, was the Sand Sea Trilogy Book 1, The Stardust Thief. I did like it, and I did enjoy it, but I decided that I was like, not. This is the problem with me in getting the first book in the series right when it comes out, because then I end up, like, even if I read it, I might lose interest after a while, so it's better for me to get series when all the books are out, or I can get them on, on Libby or something, because then there's more of a chance of me sticking with it and, pursuing it and enjoying. Not that I didn't enjoy this was good, and I was all set to continue with it, but then it was like, after a while, I just stopped and decided I didn't want to, I needed to make room on my shelf. Although now I could potentially keep it if I wanted to, because I got a new shelf for free. And, but I still don't know, because I will still need to, continue donating books, even if I'm not, even if I got a new shelf, I'm not going to keep, because I'm not going to get another new shelf. This is the last one, so I don't have the room. I mean, I do have a little bit of space, but not a lot. So, but it's still good. It's just, I mean, maybe I'll try to see if about getting this an audiobook. But anyway, but yeah, it was a cool story. It was a story about stories and everything, and I did claim it was a favorite, but in the end, was it really, I liked it well enough, but was it a favorite? I think because it was about something that I don't read about that often, a concept that I enjoy, gin, in stories within stories, but I decided to let it go. Maybe once all the books are out, I might change my mind, but at least I'm going to wait until it comes out in paperback, or just get it on Libby or something, but yeah. Sorry. Like I said, it's not a bad book. It was an interesting book. It was an interesting quest story, story within stories. Okay, so, question number 5, spring break. It's the perfect time for an adventure. Pick a book involving a road trip. Okay, so here's the one where I'm picking, The Hobbit again, because it's the one that I know off the top of my head is definitely a road trip. So, in this one, Bilbo is summoned to be a burglar for this group of dwarves who are trying to reclaim their homeland, the Lonely Mountain. So, Gandalf says they should recruit him, because he's good at, hobbits are really good at, taking stuff, like finding stuff, and, because they're so small, and they can sneak around and stuff like that. So, they invite him to come along, and he's a fish out of water for a little while, and he's been so comfortable in his own home, in his little hole in the ground, that he's never left. But there's a little bit of adventure spirit in him, and Gandalf knows this. And he goes on this adventure where at first there's a lot of tension between him and the dwarves, especially Thorin Oakenshield, who's the leader, and the king. And, but there's fun, and he's really struggling with this whole, adapting to leaving home and living on the road lifestyle, and, there's lots of danger. They meet, trolls that try to eat them. At one point, they run into goblins and the Goblin King, and they end up having to seek advice from Elrond even though they're not two. They come across Elrond and the elves of Mirkwood, the blonde elves. They come across those guys as well, and they don't get along with any of the elves. There's tension there. And there's a huge battle at the end. They have to, come across a dragon. They have to, Bilbo has to dodge a dragon, and called Smog. And there's just so much that happens in this book, and it's an adventure. It's fun. Like I said, it was originally meant for children. It's just such a quest. Oh, wait, is there a picture in here? Yeah. So I think it's okay to show you this. Look, here's a picture. I think, what chapter is this? Over the hill and under the hill. So I don't know where this is. Oh, and they come across spiders. There's a lot of, and I'm just so excited to read this. I know it's gonna be a little different from the movies, but like, and even the actors that they loved the movie because of course it's their work. They made that movie, so of course they love it. But they also acknowledge that it's very different from the book. So they're, I think they still include all that stuff. But all that stuff does happen, but it's a little different than the movie. It's the 75th anniversary edition. But, yeah, most of my Lord of the Rings books are like this now, are in this edition, this black cover with the embossed image with a little bit of color on it. I think all of them are like that. All my books, except for a couple. Okay, so that was question number 5. So now we're on question number 6, mating season. Okay, so I don't really love books with smut. I'm just not interested. But there are some that I've read. Like in a way, Song of Ice and Fire has some smut in it, but it's not nice smut. It's not the kind of smut that, what the questions say, it's not smutty delights, I would say. And their goal isn't to make babies, it's just to please themselves. So the best answer I can give you is I reread ACOTAR series, and the smut in there is very rich, and lots of it, and each book progresses in that series. There's a lot more of it. And it was fun. It's kind of fun and funny, the smut stuff, especially hearing it via audiobook. I mean, it wasn't as, there wasn't all the moaning and stuff like that in the audiobook. It was done very tastefully. But there was some F-bombs and, you could, but, characters were very pleased. But yeah, that's the closest to Smutty Delights, is that series. I reread it, but I don't seek smut out. I'm not interested in reading about smut. If it's in there, that's fine. I don't care. But I don't seek it out. So I don't really have an answer for this except for ACOTAR. So in a way, I do have an answer, but it's not anything new. Okay, so next we have question number 7, rainbows. I just feel like spring is made of freaking rainbows. Pick a book featuring an LGBTQ plus characters. Okay, so at the moment, the only thing I could think of was a book that I need to... This is a book that I need to reread that I never finished, and I started over with it, and that is Priory of the Orange Tree. And I know enough that there is LGBTQ plus characters in there. There's, the Queen, Sabrin, she is gay, and there's a bit of a romance between her and the girl. It's her handmaiden, but she's also sent as a spy from the other kingdoms. And they fall in love. But I'm sure there are other examples. I would love to give you an example of autism, a person on the autism spectrum, but I don't have one, because like I said, I don't read contemporary that much. So there's probably plenty in contemporary characters like that. But I'm trying to think of... There is one book that it gave me the vibes of, at least the character was neurodivergent, but I haven't read the book yet. But yeah. And I don't know if there's any other couples like that in here. There is in the prequel book, I believe, from what Brittany in the book said in her little vlog where she read the book. That not this one, but the prequel book. I can't remember. I don't know what it's called. Like I said, I'm waiting for that one to come out on in this format in paperback before I buy that one. But yeah, this is the example I have for you guys, because there is a gay relationship. Okay, so question number 8, Spring Awakening. This is one of my all-time favorite musicals, even though it's filled with completely dysfunctional characters. Pick a book that's also filled with completely dysfunctional characters. Now, I've not seen this play. I'm familiar with it, and I love musicals, but I have not seen this one. But the book I chose actually also, I think, has some queer rep as well. Has some LGBTQ rep as well, but, I think. But I have to say, I picked Ruin of Kings by Jenna Lyons, and I just bought the sequel, so I could get into it right now. But, our main character, Kieran, first, his adopted parents are, his mom runs a brothel, essentially, a whorehouse, and turns out that she's not his biological mother, she just stole him from someone else, and his actual birth family are full of assholes, and manipulators, and political people with political ambitions, who would do whatever it takes to even step on other people, and the guy who claims to be his father is a complete asshole. He's a heartless monster. He's abusive, he has a temper like a bulldog, and he's just a horrible human being. And then the people he ends up with in the other version of the story are just, like, they're all, like, you know, not perfect people. So yeah, there's, it's his found family is horrible, and there's no pleasantness there. It's just, yeah, there's just a lot of horrible characters that you just cannot stand, that are master manipulators, and even the youngest little baby member of the family, his younger, is just, this family kind of ruins him a little bit. And it's also very confusing. The family, that's another thing that I imagine was probably confusing for a lot of people. Like, who was related to who? Was a bit, like, I should see if there should be a family tree in here or something, like, let me look. Well, there's a map in here. Yeah, there should be, like, a family tree in this book, because the families are very confusing. So I can see why that might hinder people from enjoying this, not knowing who's related to who. That's the only negative, I think. One of the negatives. But yeah. So that, dysfunctional family all the way. And I feel bad for Kieran, because he's not a bad person. And then, okay, so question number 9. In like a lion, out like a lamb. Pick a book series that didn't get better as it progressed. And I don't have an answer for this one. I could say that for TV shows. Like Once Upon a Time, for instance. That should not get better as it progressed. I know there's some adaptations that people critique that say just did not get better as it progressed. And I'm nervous about Wheel of Time. But, I probably will like it either way, because I'm mostly pretty easy to please, and the fact that I don't have an answer for this one. I did kind of give up on the Witcher series, but that doesn't mean it got really bad. It wasn't like that kind of thing. It was just more like I lost interest in the series, and I almost felt like I only got into it because I heard so much about it and everything, and it had some cool ideas. But I love the concept of, the little child and the mentor being like a father figure. I love that concept of the witch, of Geralt and Ciri, that whole little relationship. I did like that idea. I am nervous about the show because, like, they lost their main actor, Henry Cavill. He left because it was too much for him, and they didn't stay true to the books by the sound of it. And then they replaced him with Liam Hemsworth, which he's not a good-looking, good actor. I mean, he'll probably surprise us, but the fact that he's not the original and he looks very different from, what is his name? I just said his name, but now I can't remember. It just slipped my mind for a second. So that's not looking good for that series. You know, I don't know if it's going to continue. I don't know if how much longer it's going to last. And they changed a lot. They're going their own way. And it's like, the one thing I get, like, on the one thing I totally understand and will defend an adaptation and be like, you know, if you want to do your own thing, you're trying to please more than just the the fans of the original books. You're trying to please a massive audience. But you have to find the balance between that and pleasing the book fans and staying loyal to the source material. That's the problem, is sometimes these screenwriters and producers cannot find that balance. And the producers just want to make money, and they don't care about respecting the original fans. That's the vibe I get. Or, like, I get that the producers and the directors and writers want to do their own thing, but it's like, don't mess with the good thing. It was already well loved, and yes, just, you can change some things and tweak some things, and I know that some things just do not work when you adapt it, but I think you need to consider the original fans as well as just changing some things. Don't change everything. Don't completely change the story or change the direction of the story. Like, I think you got to find a balance between being loyal and doing your own thing. That's the biggest problem. And this is something you have to really be delicate about, I think. Now, there's a video essay that talks about why loyalty is not good, but I think there has to be some semblance of loyalty to the original people. But don't do fan service either. I would not want to be one of those people who has to be an adaptation, like, works on a adaptation and then has to be the one to adapt it, because I would be very nervous and freaking out because of how because then everyone would be like, would want certain things, and it's just, and you can't include everything, and you can't read people's minds, so it's not going to necessarily be exactly what those people wanted, but it's a very fine line to walk. Adapting a beloved series. Well, there's a game or a book. So yeah. So I'm having, this is another one that I have trouble finding an answer for, but yeah. So, and then number 10 is tagging people, like Fun in the Sun, tag people, and I don't really have anyone to tag. Like, if you want to do, please feel free to do this. It's a fun tag, especially now that it's a Spring tag. And there are people like Gunpowder Fiction and Plot that I would love to see their answers for this, because I know the answers would be very different, I think, than some of the other booktubers I watch. Or Olive from a Book Olive, I love for her to do this tag again, because I think she's already done it before, but maybe she doesn't want to. Tiny Toddy, what is her, let's see, and some of the new booktubers I've discovered, I would love to see supposedly Fun do this, Morgan Long, Darling Desi, I probably have to put these names in for them to even notice that I tagged them in these videos. But, there's, I would love all my favorite channels to do this tag. I love, because it's a fun tag. And I think that Darling Desi and Morgan Long would have some fun answers. And Gunpowder and Fiction and Plot, I think he would have some fun answers. And let's see. I'm trying to think of people that I started watching that I cannot remember the channel names off the top of my head, because I started watching a lot of new channels. And I'm trying to pick channels that are like, I also would love for people that are like still and newer and still like have a so I don't know. Just feel free to do this tag. It's a fun tag. Okay, so if you guys like this video, please feel free to click subscribe. If you haven't already, click the bell notification below if you want to be notified about my latest videos. If you want, you don't have to. And please give it a thumbs up if you want. If you like this video and thought it was a good one. And I hope you're enjoying your reading. And I hope if you are part of in this part of the hemisphere and enjoying spring, I hope you're outside and it's not raining. You can sit outside and enjoy this beautiful weather. I'm one of the people who actually like spring. I know a lot of people don't. Some people lean more towards autumn. But I love this. And, you know, yeah, it does have to do with the fact that my birthday is in the springtime. But I love, you know, I love the warm weather. But it's not too hot. The problem is now living in North Carolina, it's a lot shorter. And I just love, you know, the wholesomeness of spring and how it's the rebirth and everything's coming to bloom. And it's just fun. It's a playful time of year. And, you know, it's just I love this time of year. I love autumn and spring the best. Winter is, you know, I prefer winter over summer. Summer, the only reason why the whole reason I used to love summer was because, you know, I got it from school and all that, but that has gone, like, I'm not a student anymore, so it's like, and even if I was a student, I don't really have I'm working, so it's like, during the summer, I don't have a summer. I have a job where I'm working all year round, so it's hard for me, so I don't really like, and then in my job, I go outside and bring shopping carts in, so when it's hot and uncomfortable. But anyway, I'm gonna go now. I'm done rambling, and I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye!